Hi everyone, I'm Airier, and today we're going to be continuing A Fan With Too Much Time, Star Wars vs. Warhammer 40k, Episode 12, A Storm of Sabers. Last time around, we have what I've been told is a very big constant in this series, a giant-ass cliffhanger that makes you go, okay, there's an ambush by a roided-out space marine, librarian, and 47 Jedi, including freaking Obi-Wan, and they just cut away. Okay, sure. I am feeling emotions. Very strong ones, and I'm told that's going to keep happening for most of the rest of this series. If it sounds like I'm looking forward to that, I actually am, because this is amazing, and I love it, and I wish it wasn't a cliffhanger, but at the same time, it always moves on to something that I also want to see, and the timing wouldn't be right if they actually moved through it all and removed the tension. So yeah, this is becoming a masochistic series. I'm going to enjoy it. I'm going to keep doing it. But it's going to hurt. So good. It hurts so good. It sounds really bad when I say it that way, but you get what I'm talking about. Maybe. Possibly. I give it 50-50 odds. Otherwise, you guys know the details. There's a link below to the original video. Hit it up. And we're done. Don't forget to leave a like, comment, subscribe. Let's get started. Meanwhile, on the surface of Axum, amongst the sky towers of the illustrious Sapphire Spires. Is illustrious actually part of the location's name? Yeah, I can believe that. In both Star Wars and 40k, grandiose naming is a thing.
They are coming,
Ooh.
said Jedi Master Coda. He pulled the electro-binoculars away
Coda?
from his eyes and handed them back
I thought that
to
guy was
Master
Voss.
The Jedi took the
there it
device
is.
and aimed them down the massive main road which cut between the main spires of Azure City. Through them, he could see the encroaching Imperial cultists marching en masse towards the temple.
Yeah, they would technically be part of the
Quinlan
Imperial
felt a cold
cult.
lump drop into his stomach and expressed the sudden anxiety with a whistle. They really are bringing the big guns, aren't they?
I'm sorry, I don't even know what guns he's talking about yet, but they're perceivable on a roadway. For 40k standards, those don't count as the big guns. Those are the usable guns. Those are the fast response guns. When he sees the big guns, they'll be taking up a lot more than the roadway. It's going to be a moving city. Like, Titans are a thing, man. Does the bigger part of the Imperial army have Titans? I mean, Titan Legios are a thing, and they didn't kind of escape with an entire sector's worth. Did they escape with any Titans? Knights? Entirely possible. Titans. Oh, I would be giddy if that happened. I don't think so, but I could be wrong, and that would be awesome.
He asked, eyes glued to the absolutely massive columns of large vehicles and tanks.
Yeah, they're just tanks and vehicles. They don't count as big guns yet.
Although
Baneblades are large.
had a nearly unimpaired view of the thousands of tanks and tens of thousands of soldiers which were marching and rolling briskly towards Ayla's battlefront.
Oh, they're all going to
Coda
Ayla?
crossed his arms, one leg up on the lip of the short railing, eyes narrowed and focused. Yes, and everyone in the gun depot as well, from the looks of it. I think Master Windu underestimated how badly they would want to preserve that temple, or whatever it is they have inside of it. Might even be that it was their actual HQ all along.
I'm pretty sure and I could be very wrong, so if I'm wrong, let me know. But the force they left behind here, wasn't this not the main battle force, but literally, I don't know, it was the other half of the Star Wars side that left everyone on a single planet, which may or may not be Tatooine. I honestly don't remember. And this is the side that just kind of bunkered down. Okay, I thought this was just like the remnants, but it might actually be the main force that they left behind from the smaller force. Okay. Sorry, I got mistaken on which side's which.
He said as Voss watched on. Think the plan will still work?
No plan ever does.
Coda grinned. Ram Coda had joined the Jedi Order at a staggering 18 years of age.
You can do
at the
that?
behest of Jedi Master Mace Windu. He had grown up on a desolate
18? Huh. I don't know if this is canon or something fan made up for the show. For the YouTube video. For the fan fiction. Take your pick. But 18 that's older than Luke. Gotta know, Anakin being like 10 years old is so freaking old, man.
War-torn world, fighting for his life since the time he could walk to the moment that Master Windu came to his world and ended the conflict.
Damn.
He refused to command clones. He never ordered frontal charges in all but the most closed situations. And he, more than even Quinlan Vos himself, was an absolute master of conventional urban warfare.
Oh, so in other words, he's probably the only person who could be a general.
The Order more prepared for this kind of war, at least in the mind of Quinlan Vos. Nothing has changed. Is the evacuation complete? Asked Master Coda. Vos closed his eyes and soon had answers to relay. Almost. Second sweep is nearly done. He said. Coda nodded.
Ooh.
And the broadcast? Is everything ready for it?
That was a little loud.
He asked. Vos smiled. Everything is ready to go.
Wait.
As soon as you give the word.
Broadcast? I know fans about to tell me, but I honestly want to know. There's two ways I can see this going. They're either giving a general signal to the populace to, hey, do something. We're here. We need a distraction. And if you don't, they're going to kill you. Or they're sending out a message to the Imperium saying, we've infiltrated your planet. Surrender peacefully. And I'm just thinking, I don't think that's going to work. I really don't. The first one might actually be a good idea to give you an idea that, hey, fight back now or die because they will kill you. Or just, you know, throw Ewoks at it. They're pretty good at destroying things made of metal. You know, I was mentioning that as a joke, but honestly, they were pretty good at doing things like that. Tiny little murder machines, actually, now you think about it. Kind of disturbing.
Coda nodded again, sharper this time, the movement a signal of determination. Then it will work. They could march their own damned emperor down this road, and the plan will still work. Vos gave Coda a hard pat on the back.
Oh, you just had to drop that in there and I was drinking. Oh, there's confidence, and then there's this. Oh yeah, he doesn't have the context, which is why this is absolutely hilarious. That if they march the Emperor down, their Emperor, the goddamned Emperor, which is a very literal state for him because he's literally damned by what the warp gods did. So he's completely right, but also that they could take them, the plan would work. And I'm just sitting here going, you sure about that? It's funny because it's an out of context problem for him that he is so badly misreading. If they had the Emperor there, even just the Emperor alone, it wouldn't work. And the fact that the Emperor comes with Custodes and they're having trouble with Space Marines. Oh, his confidence isn't wrong based on what he's seen, but he's really underestimating it in a way that he has absolutely no way to possibly correct yet. And to get a correct estimate, he would have had to essentially up his estimation of what the upper power level is by such a wide margin that it would honestly be obscene for him to do that for anything based on what he's seen. But it's still hilarious, man. Oh, dear God.
What neither of them were mentioning, but what they were all fully aware of, was just how many of Axum's own population would die from this.
Yeah.
It was unavoidable, and the collateral damage was bound to be enormous, no matter how.
I mean, at some point, the planet blowing up might actually be the Star Wars side's best option.
Both masters silently wondered if they were on the verge of stepping over a vital line, and if there would be any returning from that if they did.
And that's the best part. He's saying the thing I've been thinking for a while. While tactically what they're doing, you know, doing something that will cost most of the population life is the military right choice. It's the problem we had between Ahsoka and Windu in the previous episode. Windu is right tactically. Ahsoka is right on a more spiritual level, which in Star Wars isn't really a huge problem because spiritual and military are kind of going hand in hand. It's not so fucked up. But if you bring in more of the 40K side where your spirit very much matters, because if you fuck that up, monsters nom on it. So I could see this being the prelude to a lot of problems in the future, and I kind of hope it is, because that would add so many dimensions of what the F.
It will be worth it.
No, it won't. Even I know that.
More to himself than to his contemporary. I'll deliver Axum back into the hands of the Republic, the whole world, with just this. He added, looking down into his hand at the hollow disc clutched there, and the tremendous responsibility using it would place on him.
The hollow disc?
On all of them.
Are they actually planning to blow the planet? Meanwhile, Command Square Terrador continued to advance up the Grand Azure Avenue. They really love these just names. Cutting through the Sapphire Spires district. Sapphire Spires, Azure Avenue. I'm assuming there's an Emerald Coast in there. No, it'd have to be like some kind of alliteration. Emerald Isles? No, that'd be full on Ireland. Is this a real planet? Or did Fan make this up and just have fun with the naming alliteration scheme? I honestly don't know.
It was making his skin itch. The voices. Were the voices really back?
What?
He had thought he was free of them, had been free of them ever since they had entered the new galaxy. Or at least he had been mostly free of them. He was sure. But now they were back, yes, and so many, and so confusing. Before,
Latent psyker
there had
or
been many
trained psyker?
voices as well, but they had spoken to him, given him orders, made promises, and threats.
Oh, this isn't just a psyker. This is a psyker who's listening to chaos because he's open to it. Ah. This was the army, so... Oh, no.
These new voices, he could not make heads or tails of them. Hey, Gak.
Oh, so one of the Imperial Army guys is a latent psyker? Oh. And considering the kind of voice presences you leave, there actually might be... So he would hear Force ghosts, apparently. I know it's mostly a Jedi thing that leave those behind, but I'm assuming a powerful enough Sith could do some crazy-ass shit.
Hey, said Panic, the medic, snapping his fingers
the
in
medic's
the
name is
psyker's
Panic.
face as he did. They were all riding
that makes
in
sense.
the cabin of the Commissar's Chimera transport, the whole command squad seated nearby. None of them were overjoyed at the prospect of being crammed into an enclosed space with a battle psyker, but Gaxian Krell had proven himself reliable countless times, despite his admittedly unhinged personality. Gak's eyes focused as he sat up.
Oh, this is even worse. He's a battle psyker, which means he's sanctioned. Because they would know he's a psyker already. But if he's hearing the voices and they're making him promises and threats, I'm assuming he worked on a few of them, so he's a corrupted psyker that they know about. In other words, the Commissar, if the Commissar's still alive, should be very close to putting a trigger on him. Hearing the voices and ignoring them is what you gotta do, but hearing the voices and getting what they want to do done, is that... I just realized this looks like a bandage dispenser on a servo skull. But for a second there, I thought it was a toilet paper dispenser servo skull. I'm just saying, as far as Grimdark goes, having your skull get turned into a toilet paper roll holder, that's pretty low. Yeah.
Straighter, seeming dazed for just a second before nodding his head. Yes, I'm fine.
No, you're not,
he said. Panic narrowed his eyes at that, but nodded his head slowly. As the medic of the team, he was the one person who could scrutinize Gak that way and not come off as being overly cautious or superstitious, though he was undoubtedly both.
Also, it's a psyker. You should literally always look at him that way. There's no way you shouldn't look at him that way.
If you say so, Gak, but you seemed really out of it just now.
Yeah.
What's the matter? You got a bad feeling? Asked Panic. Gak paused and then nodded his head.
I know this is a Star Wars crossover, but really, they're doing the I've got a bad feeling about this by having the guy who's the 40k equivalent of a Jedi, because he's not as high level as some of the other crazy guys, but just, they're literally doing the entire I've got a bad feeling about this, and also that's as close to a British accent as I'm ever going to get, and there's a reason I don't do it. He actually went there for the full meme.
It's a
reference only, but he did it.
The psyker admitted. But but I thought you said they were gone ever since, started the medic.
Different voices, much quieter.
I know what I said, Gak blurted, just a bit too loud, drawing some cagey stares
And he's
from the
open about the
standard-bearer
voices.
and the ordnance commander who sat nearby. I know what I said, he repeated more calmly now. But they're back, Panic. They're back and weird. Panic paled a little at that, and Gak felt suddenly
What would count as weird by
burdening
comparison to the normal
with
warp?
his psychic baggage, but the medic did not back down. Weird how? Like, skin your friends and dress in them weird? He asked.
You know, I was going to say that's a really specific oddity, but considering Slaanesh, no, that's probably par for course. If anything, it's probably rather tame. And granted, that part on its own is disturbing in its own right. So yeah, I'm going to move on.
Gak shook his head. No, nothing normal like that. They aren't making any sense, and there are so many, hundreds at least. The psyker said, still hearing the whispering chatter slipping and sliding over his thoughts. Well, what is something they say? Just tell me. It can't make no sense. Panic insisted.
He's hearing the
Gak
other
paused
Force
for a
users.
moment. 3 more on floor 812, said Gak. Panic blinked. What? He asked.
Oh! He's tapped into the psychic communication of the Jedi. Oh. Also, I love that this is the part that's confusing him. But things like skin your friends and wear their clothing, it's just normal. Yeah, and again, for 40K. I'm not even going to say it's weird. It makes perfect sense that would be considered normal. And just people talking in coherent sentences, but so many of them talking at the same time, is overwhelming and confusing to him. Also, that would also... Yeah, it would also mean that all of the other Jedi are hearing everything and parsing it. So, really impressive multitasking on their end.
Gak continued. Floor 604 is clear. Starting second sweep up. Panic rubbed his chin, eyes almost crossing in confusion. Are we bringing pets or just people? Said Gak. Okay, stop, Gak. None of what you're saying makes any sense, Panic said. Exactly, Gak said.
I love this. It's so coherent and we get what's being done. He's literally tapped into the resource, but it's so normal. It's actually confusing him. But also because no one in 40K would ever be dumb enough to send brain-to-brain messages through the warp. And for good reason, because that is a horrible idea. But here it makes sense, and it's so much of an out-of-context problem for him. He doesn't get what he's looking at. And no one else does, because the idea of doing that, it's like saying, hey, so how do you want to commit suicide? By being eaten by a demon. That's literally the same thing that they would do if this happened in 40K. Ah, this is such a great setup. I didn't even think of this because they've been talking about the telepathy of the Jedi being used and just that extrasensory perception. But that's just different here. Super powerful people can do it, but it takes a lot of work. Like Magnus when he tried to send a message to his dad on Terra. And we saw how that went. Just broke a few railway patterns there. You know what I mean. And if you don't, does that count as spoilers yet? Probably not. I love this entire setup because it only works because they've established the Jedi are here and they're using telepathy to communicate. So we know they're doing it. We know what's going on. But if this had just happened and then we saw it, it would be so out of the common. Like, what? Telepathy is the thing. We see it in the movies. It's not really said as telepathy, but you kind of get to feel the presence. That stuff. Here, though, it's just battle telepathy, just talking in your heads between each other. And they've been using it constantly, and you see the references to it. But now we're seeing it from the other side without context. This is a brilliant setup for how to make this kind of out-of-context problem work, where you completely understand what's being seen, but you can also understand why it doesn't make sense to the other side. That's brilliant.
It makes even less sense than they normally do, and that can't be good, not considering what's, never mind. Just, it's making me edgy, said the psyker.
And whatever he cut himself off on is pretty bad.
To himself, the psychic focus glowing slightly as he did. The object should have made
he's definitely
the whispers of
chaos
demons and the
adjacent, if nothing
dead
else.
More silent,
I'd say he's probably
instead,
listened to those
it only
voices
made
head on
them
the other
louder.
side.
Panic nodded his head and sat back. Well, I can see why. You feel like it's going to be a problem? Asked the medic.
Technically, yes,
Jack
but not
shook
the way
his
you
head.
think.
No, I mean, maybe. But it won't be a problem for me and my abilities, if that's what you're asking. But I think these whispers bode ill.
Yeah.
Panic grit his teeth, hoping the psyker was wrong, but knowing well enough to understand he probably wasn't. Gak's career may not have started off as impressive as that of some, but his accomplishments over the decades had earned him a respect few psykers could manage to attain. Ever since the great...
Yeah. Not even psykers. Surviving in the Guard for decades, that's impressive. Also, psykers are usually not sent into areas where they're expected to survive. Granted, that's literally everyone in the Guard, so that says nothing. Surviving for a battle is impressive. Surviving a campaign is impressive. Surviving decade, or was it decades plural? Doesn't matter. Either one is really damn impressive. I know I make light of the 40K side and how stupid a lot of people are, and a lot of people in 40K are dumb as a bag of rocks, intentionally, because they don't do the entire think thing. Again, intentionally, because that leads you to think, hey, what if we did something to make our life better? And then you rebel and you go to chaos because that's really the only other option there is. But the people like that usually die in the Guard. Anyone who survives is usually really damn competent. Again, it has that discrepancy of you have amazing people and you have cannon fodder and very little in between. Gak seems like... Is his name really Gak? Wow. I just realized what that sounds like. He seems like he's on the more competent side, if probably chaos adjacent.
Jump. Gak had only seemed more in control, more powerful even. But there were forces.
It's like if no one's trying to eat your brain, you can concentrate on doing crazy shit.
Wielded by a Primaris Psyker seemed minuscule in comparison. The very idea of encountering such a thing here, now, attacking the Basilica itself, was chilling in the extreme. From the sounds of it, the daemons themselves are running their own operations, even as we run ours.
Think
Panic
about
said,
what you
only
just said.
half joking. After all, there weren't any such things as daemons, right? Gax's face did not reflect his answering chuckle, as if the possibility of that being exactly the case was far too large to discount as a superstitious joke. They rode in silence for a time then.
Was he talking about daemons on this side or daemons in 40K side?
Mind seemed either unwilling or unable to release Panic's last words from his mind. Then realization struck him like a blow to the face, and his eyes widened in sudden dismay. Stop the chimera! Gak yelled, shooting up in his seat, making all the passengers around him flinch back.
Gets thrown forward
Commissar
and stops.
Terrandor looked back from his command seat underneath the turret, eyes fierce as he thumbed the holster of his bolt pistol. But even this subtle act, one which would normally force any psyker to halt dead in their tracks, failed to impact Gak enough to stop him from smacking the large red button which opened the back hatch. What in the Emperor's damned shit do you think you're doing, Gaxian? Sit back down before I put you down! Started the Commissar, already beginning to stand
Probably a
up
good
from
idea
his
regardless,
seat.
but...
Gak did not wait for him to finish his threat, jumping out the back of the still-moving chimera and hitting the hard, smooth floor of the avenue with a hard thunk, stave landing right beside him. He hissed and reached for the focus, grasping it greedily and hugging it to himself, before looking up at the oncoming chimera that had been traveling behind his own. It swerved to avoid him, hitting the leftmost elevated barrier which separated the massive suspended road from the near 1,000-foot drop to the true surface of Axum. The barrier was cracked, but held firm, though that did not stop the officer stationed inside the vehicle from popping the hatch and poking his head out angrily. What is going on here? Guardsman, are you high?
I mean, probably,
he
but
accused,
also...
face bright red at the sudden intrusion, clear...
I just realized saying, Cosman, are you high? One, in a British accent, so it's hilarious. Two, he's probably saying that because it's most likely happened. Again, they're all going to die usually. So it's probably something, especially among newbies, that happens pretty frequently. And no one's probably going to do anything because, I mean, if you don't go forward, you're going to get killed. You might as well do your job without being able to tell what your job is. And again, for cannon fodder level, that's probably an improvement still.
Clearly unholstering his own last pistol until he was able to recognize that Gak was no traditional guardsman. Gak paid him no heed at all, eyes wide, frantic, looking around, first at the vehicles and soldiers near him, and then up and away at the surrounding city spires. His act had succeeded in halting the transport column, which slowly brought most things to a halt around it. Lehman Russ battle tanks squealed and hissed as they rolled to a stop. Guardsmen marching in tight, proud ranks halting to look at the commotion, Hydra battle tanks stomping their treads,
Well, he was in the
even
front
as
of
their
this.
active anti-air flak cannons continued to sweep and scan for hostiles. But it was not their thoughts he was hearing. No, they were too weak, guttering flames in the dark of the warp, not bright enough to navigate a stream of piss to the ground, much less loud enough to intrude into his
Can you
thoughts.
see where they're from and trace
Normally,
it
it
back?
was only the daemons who could even attempt such things, burning themselves against his mind wards and soul-binding Aegis to whisper temptations into his ear.
Oh, so he does have the
But
Aegis.
if not daemons, and not the normal men around him, then... Gaxian! The Psyker spun at the call, coming to face his own stopped chimera and the enraged form of Commissar Terrandor. Bolt pistol in hand, though not raised, the man was storming towards the Psyker, his eyes promising a throttling at least.
Wait. The Commissar is holding back from killing a Psyker who's acting weird? This is going to sound odd coming from me, but this Commissar is being incredibly lenient. No, seriously, like, hear me out on this one. Normally, when you have a Psyker and they start acting weird, the safest option for yourself and the Psyker is to blow their brains out because they are probably about to do something that would get their soul nommed on. And all of everyone else's. Also the rest of everyone else's flesh and everything else. Yeah, flesh, meat, bones, squiggly bits. Take your pick. The fact that the Commissar hasn't is extending Gak a lot of credit here. But also, anywhere else other than the Star Wars universe where there's no daemons actually trying to nom on you, that would be almost suicidally stupid not to immediately go to the blow your brains out option for the Psyker. Yeah, I'm just sitting here going like, this Commissar is just being a little too nice. And that thought is weird. Yeah.
His weapon suggesting worse was not out of the question. Terrandor! Gak said, as if only seeing him now for the first time that day. He came towards the man, arms outstretched, almost as if to embrace him. There, right here, right in the block, the Psyker started to say before Terrandor whipped him across the face with the butt of his pistol.
Yeah.
Gak took the blow hard, blood spilling from his mouth and nose, leaning as if to fall, and then hanging unnaturally in the air.
That Commissar
before
seems a little
resuming
weird.
his former posture, blood still trickling down his face and lips. But his expression, that of a man who noticed no pain save that of his panic. That, more than anything else, got the Commissar taking him seriously. What are you talking about, Krell? Who is here? The Commissar demanded, looking around quickly before redirecting his eyes back
must be
to
a
the
different name.
Psyker. They! The enemy! Gak said, eyes wide and wild. The toy soldiers? Terrandor pressed, but Gak shook his head. No, nothing so mundane. It's their masters, my lord. The masters of the Republic have come. They are surrounding us even now.
Oh, I love this entire sentence right here. The masters of the Republic have come. It's funny because it's technically right. He's completely wrong. The Jedi are not the ones in charge of the Republic. But if he's not talking about Jedi, he's talking about people who use the warp or the Force in Star Wars. He's completely right because Palpatine is in charge, technically of both sides. So yes, by default, he's not wrong. A Force user is in charge. It's like he's completely wrong, except for the very top where he's still completely right, without intending it. I love bits like this, where we can see everything they're missing in context, but coming to the correct conclusion that no one else has because they're missing the context to see why they're wrong. I love that because it's wrong. The Jedi are in charge. But he's not talking about the Jedi. He's talking about people using the equivalent of the warp. So it works and it's right, but he doesn't know that no one else does. But we as the audience who have seen the movies and everything else would know that. I like this kind of writing. I like it where there's multiple levels you can read it on and it's so completely wrong until it's right. That's just good. Is it intentional? No, he's just doing this from the perspective of someone on this side who wouldn't know there's a division or care. And I don't think he'd be high enough up to even realize there was a division yet. I'm not sure how much of that information has been passed on. Sith really wouldn't be a big thing just yet. At least among anyone outside of the Jedi. And maybe even then. So yeah, I like that. I just really like this bit of writing.
They are! Gak was cut off as the ground suddenly jumped and quaked a couple of inches, enough to shake several milling guardsmen to the ground. The planet around them seemed to start groaning under their very feet, the deep sound drowning everything else out.
Did they just detonate
What is happening?
the base of
Yak
the
saw more than
city?
heard the commissar say. Though he knew his response would not be heard either, he gave it anyway as he began to draw upon
That
his
would be
power,
dangerous.
all of his power, and all of the power around him that was not his, for he knew that he would need all of it in mere seconds.
Oh.
They are attacking! They have ordered the planet itself against us, and the planet is listening!
What? Can the Jedi do that? Wait. New Cadia? Oh, that's what they're calling it? Okay. Meanwhile, deep within Sanctus Base, inside New Cadia's Central Command Headquarters. And that would tell us exactly what the relic is. I wouldn't be surprised if the relic that the entire thing is based around, the one the Jedi are like, maybe we should destroy this, is literally a piece of Cadia, probably. I would be very surprised if that's not the case. Or a pylon. Be weird if it was a pylon, because I don't think they understood what those were yet. I mean, some people did, but I don't think they would have had those. I wouldn't be surprised if it is a bit of Cadia, though. I mean, they are calling it New Cadia. Grant, I think this is the first time that's been said. Unless I missed it prior. Entirely possible.
Marshal Dovin, there is a message coming across the Xenos channels. It's planet-wide,
Dovin?
sir, said the tech adept from
Because he's
his
very
sunken
draconic in
alcove
nature.
in the command center. Everything was dark there, the room lit by little more than the green hololith displays and the screens that the staff used to receive and relay orders and information. The place was bustling despite the lack of light. Uniformed bodies of both the Imperial military and the priesthood of the Adeptus Mechanicus working and moving over the wire-laden floors, clustered control panels, and the many purity seals and holy scriptures adhered onto the ceilings and walls by lavish
A lot of skulls
wax.
everywhere.
Nothing over the box? Asked the marshal, standing near the center of the room, leaning over a hololithic table that showed him a display of the entire planet, lit in flickering green. Around its surface pulsed various icons, those in blue representing his forces and those in red the enemy. They had all landed near the Basilica of Salvation, something he had not expected they would know anything about. That level of intelligence disturbed him, and it, along with his broadcast, reinforced to him how little they understood the travel and communications capacity of their new enemies.
I mean, on the one hand, yeah. On the other hand, they're not hiding, or at least it doesn't sound like they're hiding, the importance of the Basilica to them. So just watching their pattern, unless he's not so much talking about knowing it based on observing them, but that they could observe him in advance at all. Maybe that's what he's talking about here. I think that's probably it, just because anything else doesn't quite add up. Okay.
The tech adept craned his head back and shook it no. All right then, patch it through. Let us see what the softies are saying. The adept nodded and
Oh, so
began
this is the
tapping
one they were
away.
talking about.
Soon enough,
The message going out.
a previously inactive hololith flicked to life and displayed the image of a man, a Jedi general, face scarred and body dressed in the battle plate of this weak republic. He stood confidently, his face composed of a determined expression which told the marshal this message meant nothing good. People of Axum,
It's going out to the
citizens
people.
of the Azure lineage, defenders of the Sapphire Gate into the core, we have come, he said. We are here, in all our strength, to free you from these killers, madmen, and tyrants. The Jedi Order has come, as promised, to defend the gate. Even now we fight. We wage liberating war against the enemies of our venerable republic. Enemies which make the pitiful Confederates seem like minors.
Of course, getting that little jab in there.
We will fight, and we will die. But we may not be able to do this alone. The man held out the hilt of his weapon and activated the saber. So I call now on you, honored guardians of the Republic. You whose lineages stretch back to those most ancient wars when all that stood between order and chaos was the Sapphire Gate at Axum. You who still honor your histories and shrines within your homes, who care for and look after weapons tens of thousands of years old.
I wasn't expecting to say this, but even though this is not meant to be heard, or the intended audience is not the Imperium, the speech he's giving actually sounds like one that would be effective in the Imperium. Talking about your honor, to defend against chaos, to hold weapons that are tens of thousands of years old. Everything he's saying is probably even more effective to the Imperials listening like, wait, what? And if it's a human-looking general on top of everything else saying it, I don't think it's enough to ever, keep them from doing anything. But it's definitely not what they're expecting to hear. Someone making a statement that sounds like Imperial propaganda, like something they would put out to get people riled up. And it probably might have a weird effect depending on how many people hear this. I would love to hear someone on the grunt side going, wait, this isn't ours? And just have that moment of, but this makes sense. That sounds like, what? I want to hear that because this actually sounds like it functions even better on the Imperial side. I don't know how militaristic this planet actually is in Star Wars canon. I need to follow Clone Wars more. I know that. But I like this because the intended audience and the audience that's also overhearing it have a lot of similarities, apparently. And it actually appeals to the unintended audience almost better, I think. That's kind of brilliant.
Now is the time to use those weapons again, to honor those shrines with service in place of sentiment. By the end of this day, Axum will be liberated from the Empire. Whether the credit for that liberation goes to the warriors
by
of
the
this
end of the day
of worlds is yours
that seems a little
to
optimistic.
decide. Rise, Axum. The Jedi have come, and now we are waiting. The transmission ended. Throne. Contact all other installations and fortresses planet-wide. Tell them to expect heavy resistance from the civilian population in a short amount of time. Tell them... Marshal! Cried out one of the comms officers. Battle Group Alpha, who was heading to relieve the siege at the Basilica of Salvation, they've encountered a problem, sir. The Marshal scowled. Spit it out, Lieutenant. What is the problem? He ordered.
Bullshit levels of bullshit.
The Lieutenant simply paled and attempted to speak, but
what
only
did the Jedi
managed
do?
to mouth gibberish. The Marshal grit his teeth, waiting until it became clear the man was too flummoxed by what he was hearing to do his duty.
Hearing?
He looked over at his second, who snapped a salute and marched over to the comms officer, knocking the man unconscious with an uppercut to his jaw and yanking the headset off of his lolling skull. She kneeled to follow him as he slumped, taking his weight as she pressed the earpiece of the headset to her ear.
Oh?
Though her stern expression did not change, she also seemed to lose color in her face. She barked a few orders to clarify the situation into the headset, but whatever answers she was getting were evidently not satisfying her. Meanwhile, the Marshal turned back to the hololith globe of Axum, manipulating the display to look at the line of blue icons which represented the regimental units and commanders that made up Battle Group Alpha. He felt his chest cool and then burn as, one by one, in a line leading from forward to back, the icons began to vanish from the map. What the feck is happening out there?
Wait, what? Feck? Sorry, they've already sworn. Why does he need to censor it? Or is that just like a planet thing that's just there and the 40K just missed it? Probably entirely possible. Also, I love how it's updating in real time, which makes sense because their technology is not always up to date, but it's more up to date than that. So just seeing what's happening, and even if he doesn't have to hear what's going on, he has an idea what's going on. He says what's going on, but at the same time, I'm assuming he knows, oh, shit is going down. I love this. I love the reveal where we're not being told what happened yet, but we're seeing everything around it. The planet shaking, being told by the Psyker that the planet is answering, that everything that people are hearing about is making them pale. And then even the person who's taking over is like, oh no, we're building up to what's going to happen rather than just being told it. And that's really good writing because it's building up to a big reveal of a powerful effect. We're getting people talking around it, but not belaboring the point yet. We could be belaboring the point if it goes on a few minutes longer, but I don't think we're at that point yet.
Report! He barked. Dude. He looked back toward his second in command, but she simply shook her head, still kneeling as she took the headset off. There was only screaming, sir. Screaming and then silence, she said. Gruck shit! He accused. Punch.
Oh, of course they use that. Only screaming and then silence is... I don't know if this is intentional or not, but the exact same way that Obi-Wan described hearing about the destruction of Alderaan. I'm paraphrasing heavily, but it's the same type of description being used in a different place. So I just like this because it seems like a shout out to another form of the media from one of the original franchises. And it works. I don't even think it's intentional. I think it's just a description of what's going on. But it functions on that level regardless. And if there's one thing you need to know about descriptions about things that you can give credit to, if it happens to work out that way unintentionally, you definitely say it was intentional. Yeah. I don't think it was intentional personally, but it does work really well if it was also added in and left in because of that.
Punching the console before him, making it flicker and causing the tech adepts to flinch. They must have said something. What was it? He demanded. She bit her lip, but then nodded. There were 2 words I could understand just before it was cut off.
Eruption?
And, he prompted. The spires, she said. The spires?
They fell the city.
She nodded, standing straight.
They literally dropped buildings on them. And that is where I'm going to have to cut this one because I am actually running out of time. My wife was hungry and I should have stopped recording about half an hour ago. I started later than I thought. Oops. Okay, in hindsight, recording before my wife wanted to eat dinner, maybe not my best idea. And yes, I did this because I just saw the time and I realized I'm in trouble. So, oops. Yeah, I'm in danger. Also because she wanted to get a lot of cheese tonight, so I don't get in the way with my wife and cheese. Because cheese is amazing. I've even seen book passages that you can entice a woman with cheese. Is that true for everyone? I don't know, but it works for mine. Joking aside, though, this is freaking good, man. I'm very excited to see where this goes, and it's actually tempting. And if I didn't want to, avoid becoming single again, I would very much just keep doing this, because this is fun. So if you haven't already, there's a link below to the original video. Hit it up. And if you can, let me know what mistakes I made. If there's anything that's just happened to be out of a context for my knowledge, because I don't know that much about the Star Wars side. Which bugs me because I've been a Star Wars fan decades longer than a Warhammer fan, but I think I know more about Warhammer. Which is weird. And it's just being rubbed in my face a lot lately. I'm okay with learning more, but just, yeah. So if there's anything I don't know, let me know, please. Otherwise, thanks for watching, everyone. I'll see you guys in the next one. Adios.